On your microphones, please. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, adequate notice of the meeting has been provided. Please rise for a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nancy's taking the minutes in the other room, but I'll roll call. Jay, present. Barbara?
Here.
York is excused. Carol Sick is excused. George Ator is excused. George Warner? Here. Jim Van Pelt?
Here.
Robert Kraft is absent. Shane Meyer is making copies of the new ordinance to discuss. And let the record show that Ron Manier, our tree contractor, is present, and we'll go from there. Couple of outstanding, minutes. You have in your package the minutes from the November 14th meeting. I'll take a moment to look over those if you haven't already, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented or corrected.
Make a motion to approve. Jay?
Who? Jim makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I can second.
Nancy, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Minutes passed. I think the first on the agenda will deal with Jackie Speck from Maryland Avenue. Come on up, Jackie, and press the button on that microphone so it turns green, if you would, please. There you go.
Thank you.
Jackie's requested to remove a pine tree,
Cedar.
a pine tree, I guess, a cedar tree, rather, from the
Cedar.
left rear corner of the property. I denied the application. Jackie came in last month to appeal it, and I asked the members to go take a look at the tree. Have the members looked at that tree?
I had taken a look. I didn't go completely into her yard, but from the driveway, it's the
No, it's on
trees-
I get
From the
on
driveway
It's
side.
the left
Yeah.
side of the back.
By just stepping in just 2 or 3 feet into the
Right.
driveway, I can see the tree pretty clearly. I know she had a lot of work done just recently with a lot of pruning of the trees that were in the backyard. And just looking at that tree, it looks like a very healthy tree. So
Yeah.
I understand there's other conditions here, unsightly, I guess, just like a work of art. It depends on, how you see it. I didn't see it as an unsightly tree. The fact that it's mentioned about allergies, by removing that one tree, if you have allergies, I don't think that's going to make a difference. There's still so many trees in the area. If you're allergic, it's still going to be airborne pollen. It's not going to matter whether or not it's 15 feet away from you or 50 feet away from you. It really isn't going to matter much.
You have any comments?
Yes, sir. I too went to take a look at the tree. It looks in very, very good health. I did not see a reason why it should be taken down.
Barbara?
I'm sorry, the weather was so bad I wasn't able to get over there. My car wouldn't start. I've had a terrible month beginning.
Okay, all right. And I don't have any information from the other members that might have looked at the tree, but I agree. I thought the tree was it's not as healthy as it has been over in the past, but it seems to be in good health.
Well, I had Matt look at it a little closer.
Yeah, what?
I had Matt Notch look at it a little closer when he was there with big, heavy equipment
Okay,
to cut other things. This is what he showed me. There's a major defect in the cambium of that tree.
Okay.
Now, if you're looking at this from out on the garage, out on the driveway.
Okay.
You can't even see that, okay? He estimates that almost 40% of that tree in the core is dead. He said Mickey Riggins, an arborist, would have no problem condemning that tree. So I'll pass that around. All the branches you can see all the way up over the years have fallen off of this tree with every ice storm that comes around. The only thing left are the branches on the very top. Okay? You can see the rot here that he marked. You can also see rot going all the way up. He said there are 2 rotted leaders on the top half of the tree. He said a good ice storm will break off more of the branches, as they've always broken them off, or it could take down the whole tree. My house, if you can see the way this tree leans, is the target for this tree.
whose notes are these written on the bottom of the photos?
Mine,
Your notes, okay.
from,
Did
From
Matt
Matt's-
Notch leave any notation other than
no, other than he told me.
just, okay, just
Other than
verbal?
he told me, yes.
I have a quick question. On this picture that I'm looking at right now, who has written this here on the?
I wrote it.
You wrote it. Okay, so not Matt Notch.
I'm quoting him.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Judging from more of the pictures and the new evidence, I'll entertain a motion to give approval of the tree to be removed for a $75 fee.
Jay, I'll make that motion. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
That's the one there. Let me see that one more time.
Hard time following where that goes. I'm sorry,
Is this?
yeah, I just don't find this compelling. There.
Do I have a second?
I just wanted to ask one more question. So the notations are yours, the photos are also yours? Mm-hmm. Did you get anything from Matt Notch other than verbal?
No.
No.
I took notes when he told me what it was.
I have issue with that, I'm sorry.
Just for clarification,
Yeah,
by state law, Matt can't give a written opinion on it.
He's not an.
Only a
he's not an
certified tree
arborist.
expert can.
I thought he was a certified arborist.
No, he's a.
Oh, he's not?
He's an ISA certified. He's not even that anymore.
He's
but
not,
Has to be a
okay.
New Jersey certified tree expert.
Ron, did you have a chance to look, have you seen this tree?
No, I have not. And I can't even give an opinion on it.
We don't
Technically,
have
by
the
state law.
full membership here, Jay, as we did last month's meeting, so there are a few voices here that maybe you would want to hear from. And I'm only doing that for the benefit of the plea. because I think now, if we did take a vote with the quorum, I think this is going to go down. So I don't think it'll get approved.
Would you be able to take a
So
look at
would
the
you
tree?
want to shelve it for one more month and have the other members give their
I'll talk to you
opinion?
about later.
So you make a, okay, I don't have a second on the.
I'm not
proposal.
second, no.
So,
No.
Why not?
It seems like a healthy tree.
I don't find it,
gonna make
I
You
don't,
know, you
I'm gonna
have,
make
you
another-
stand in my driveway. You aren't
Okay,
even
so,
next to the tree.
so I'll come, well, you took very good photos, so, and I appreciate that.
Can you
The
see,
only problem-
can you see the rot going all the way up the tree?
That I don't see from the photos, so I guess I would have to, you didn't want people going in your yard without contacting you, so I didn't really want to bother you,
Why
but
didn't you
but I will.
contact me?
But I will bother you, we'll come, and if you wouldn't mind, because I think also you'll get more members here at next month's meeting, and I think you'd stand a better chance on winning your appeal. I will definitely make a point of it to come by to take a close look at the tree.
You know, if you had done that, like you said last month, this has gone on since September.
Well, by those photos, I mean, that's not compelling to me, I'm sorry, it's just not.
I'm going to make another, it's actually a question, but it's a statement. You've written here, you say you have written this yourself, here where it says there's a major defect in the something layer, and that Matt Notch estimates about 40% of the core of this tree is dead. He also says Mickey Riggins, our arborist, would have no problem condemning the tree. Now, these are Matt Notch's words.
That's what
The only
Matt
thing that I can
Notch
suggest
told
to you
me.
is that you should have had him either come with you today or write a
Mr. Menear
statement,
just said that he
because
couldn't do that. Didn't you just say that, Mr. Menear?
Yeah, the new law states that the only person that can give an opinion on the condition of the tree is a certified, New Jersey certified tree expert. We can do the work, but we can't give a,
How can you folks then make a decision? How
well,
can you make a decision?
I'm gonna have an argument too, because many, many times I've sat here at this table and I have heard different landscapers and so forth come here and say exactly these words here, and we have listened to them and made decisions on their opinion. So that's my own opinion also, that if it said here that 40% of the core of that tree is dead, and you can see all of that, truth be told, I don't really think it's worth all of the trouble here to keep it alive.
so what are you saying?
That's my opinion, that it should be removed. And I don't understand what the real big problem is with, it's not really a great-looking tree to begin with, and
There's
half of
nothing
half
left
the
of the
branches
tree.
are gone.
It's just the top branches of the tree.
Right. So I really don't know what the problem is.
I mean, it seems like the two of you are the ones that are against it. How can you look at that tree? How can you look at it and make a decision?
Jay,
We do that all,
Well,
do you have
because
a-
red
do
cedars
you have a
do
say in it?
thrive in these
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
conditions.
So it'd be
And
two-
even though it may look as though it's
two.
lost some of the limbs through ice storms
But
and
you
all,
don't know
it's
that.
still a
I would,
healthy tree.
I would suggest you get a certified arborist.
Oh, my gosh.
Come in and do it.
I just spent $2,500 for Matt. I take care of the trees in my yard. He was there, he trimmed all kinds of trees in my yard. He had the big equipment there. He was ready to cut that tree, had it been approved, that I requested in September. September. Now, when that tree eventually gets removed, he has to bring that equipment all back in again. And then, now you're asking me to spend something like $200 or $300 to have an arborist come in there and
Well, there's a
evaluate that
there's a-
tree?
There's a disagreement on the members who have looked at that tree
But the
on
members
how
are
much of
not-
a hazard it is.
You're not experts on trees. You're good folks who take care of trees in this town, and I appreciate it. I love trees. I have a lot of great trees in my yard. But you're not experts on trees.
But we could point the finger back to you to say the same, so.
Right.
We are,
But
we are,
I
but,
ask people
hold on, please.
who are experts.
But we are going on verbal. So as of now, we have
my
nothing
God.
stated other than what you're stating through conversation with Matt Notch. We have nothing to back that up with. So,
So you think I'm lying to you?
I'm not,
Oh, God.
please, miss, I did not say that.
Oh, my gosh,
This is
guys.
ridiculous, you know that? This is ridiculous.
I think the tree commission does a wonderful job in this town. I
I'm
love
gonna-
the
I'm going
trees.
to ask the
I
other
love
two
my
members over
trees.
here, what do you think you are doing with, what is your opinion as far as how healthy this tree is and how good it's going to look? You know, certainly you have to have something more, that you've looked at the tree and you see what it looks like and what the condition is. And do you have a explanation as to why you think it's going to be a healthy, great-looking tree forever and ever?
Well, no tree will be healthy
Well,
forever
that's
and
the
ever.
point.
Listen,
Miss, I'm looking,
And when it does fall, did you see how it, do you know what that damage is around the,
Miss-
when we bought our house 32 years ago, that was a little tree. And the person that lived there before had a wire around it because it was headed right for the house. He had a wire around it to pull it back. So that wire is what damaged that tree, because we left it on there. Because we didn't want the tree hitting the house, right? You can see that it still leans toward the house.
Miss,
It's a dangerous tree.
Miss, I'm looking at your tree removal request form, and I see you have two reasons under the reason for removal. One just says storm damage, and then it continues into some rot, plus your husband who's allergic to the pollen. That's correct?
That's correct, yes.
Jay, I'd like to recommend that,
Excuse me, could I continue to say?
sure.
And because of that was rejected, when Matt was there, I asked him about the tree again. And that's when he gave me this information. He said, you know, this is not a healthy tree.
I would like
So
to,
I had some expert opinion added to mine.
okay. Jay, I'd like to recommend that we table this until next month, and we,
On the higher, should we go ahead and ask Mickey Riggins or someone to come in and do an assessment of that tree?
I wouldn't object to that.
At my expense?
Well, we'll pay for it ourselves. The Shade Tree Commission will fund the cost of that. Because we're seeing to be an impasse. And a lot of the members, including myself, think that is, there's not, I mean, it's not a sightly tree. It's not a good example of a cedar tree, but it seems to me to be more of a healthy tree than not.
Do you know, Matt could actually take, you know those pictures where the two things, he could actually take his fingers and put them in there. That's what you need to do. Come and look at the tree.
Jay, would you like that in the form of a motion?
You can make a motion.
Then I move that we contact Mickey Rickens and engage him to do an assessment of this tree.
Have Mickey Riggins do an assessment of the tree.
Yes, sir.
I have a second to that.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
I'd like him to contact
Aye.
me, please.
Doing a vote, just give it a second.
We're taking a vote. Aye?
Aye.
No.
No? Aye. Okay. I'll try to get Mickey down to take a look at that tree, and if he says that it's a hazardous tree and it's not healthy and stuff like this, I'll just go ahead and issue the permit for maybe not even charge $75 for the tree if it's an unhealthy
I
tree.
don't mind paying
And go from there.
$75.
But we'll fund the cost of his assessment of the tree.
Okay. So
Okay.
will he contact me when he's coming?
I'll ask him to contact you.
Yes, please, contact
Yes.
me.
Jackie Speck, when he
Right.
comes down. We have your telephone number here, okay. Okay,
Thank you.
sorry for
Thank
the
you.
runaround, but
Thanks.
we have another guest.
Do you want my pictures?
Okay,
Do you want my pictures?
pardon?
No, I think
Yeah,
you should
you
take
have
those
the
back.
pictures.
Take them back, yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, anybody else? You?
My name is Bill Conrad. I own a property at 347 Congress Street.
Okay.
And
Your name is?
Bill Conrad,
Bill Conrad.
C-O-N-R-A-D. I put in a request to have 2 trees removed in front of our house,
Are they street trees?
street trees,
Okay.
both sycamore trees. The one is in obvious poor condition. I have pictures with me to show you that.
Okay.
It leans out towards the street. Cars are often striking it. I often sweep up pieces of broken glass mirror out there or taillights. And my concern is, when somebody hits that tree, they're going to look at me for damages. So I just want to make sure that I understand correctly that the city is responsible for these trees. So if
If
something were to
every- if
happen,
it-
it's not me, it's the
If they're
city.
in the street lawn,
Okay.
yeah.
So
What kind of trees are they?
sycamore,
They're both sycamore. And what's the address?
347 Congress Street. So I put in the request, and the request was denied. I was told that they were 2 healthy trees. Now, while the one you could dispute the fact, the other, I don't see how anybody could say that this is a healthy tree. I have pictures here I'd like to show you. And then if you flip over to the next one, you can see another branch on that tree
Oh,
where it's completely rotted out inside.
let me see.
Okay. And then here's a picture of the cars and how close that tree is. Now, I've replaced half the sidewalk. I'd like to replace the rest of the sidewalk, but the tree also has that sidewalk heaved up 8, 10 inches or so.
It's pretty common in Cape.
So this is a street tree?
That's a street tree, yeah. And there's 2 trees like that, Bill?
This is your,
The other tree, I'd be happy if I could just get permission to trim.
Trim
It's
it?
leaning over towards our house. Unfortunately, I don't have pictures of that.
Okay.
But if you came out to look at the trees,
I mean, look at,
we could discuss what needs to be done.
that's horrific. Oops, sorry.
Oh, rats.
There are large cavities in there. I saw them when you were looking at it, but
Could you go
you're
back
going, you're going to
around?
bring it back up again.
Could you go back around and help show the rest of
Yeah.
the commission?
Oops, that went blank. Don't put me around computers. On the inside of this,
It's taken out
No.
of context, though. I'd like to see the picture of the entire tree in fact, instead of that one particular.
well, here's another limb that there's nothing inside. It's like a
It's
rotted out.
still no context on, as it applies to the tree in general. That's just one particular limb of the tree.
Is that the only photos you have, just of that one limb, or you have a?
Oh, let's see what I have. I'd be willing to meet anyone out on site to look at these trees. But it's not in good condition.
Is this just one of the 2 trees?
This is one of the 2
Just one
trees.
of
This is the worst one that I'd like to have removed. The other one, I'd just like to get permission to trim the dead branches that are in it and cut it back away from the house.
Was that how your request had originally gone in?
No, the original request was to remove those trees and that we would replace them with 2 trees. That was denied, so I put in a request today for trimming at a minimum. But if I could get rid of that one tree before it falls on
I
somebody
think
or
it's dangerous.
something.
Chair, the commissioner who's responsible for this district isn't here today. I'd like to recommend that we wait until George is in attendance and address this request at that time.
To do what?
I'd like to request that we defer judgment on this until George Ator, the district commissioner responsible for this,
Yes.
is in attendance at the meeting.
Okay. All right, we'll have the commissioner who's not here in time come and give us a report on that tree, because he's the one that probably denied the request to take him
Correct.
down.
That is correct.
So we'll try to get his comments on that one tree with the rot in it. The leaners, we have leaners all over the place. So
Okay,
we don't-
that's fine. If someone strikes it, then I'll just tell them to give the city a call. Okay, I have no problem with that.
Right.
I just
But
had a little bit of trouble
let's
getting
look at
it.
the health of that one tree with the rot in it.
Well, you had offered to the previous applicant to have an arborist come out and look at the tree.
Yes.
Could I have that same consideration?
I think that's premature, given the fact that I still would like the district
You think it's
commissioner-
what?
Premature until we get the comments.
Until
of
we
the
get,
district
yeah,
commissioner.
we'll take that under, we'll think about that, but first, we're going to get George Ator's comments on what his thoughts are on that tree, on the one with the rot. As you face the house, what side of the street are you on?
I'm on the right side as you're leaving the beach.
And these two trees are right in front of your house?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And it should be pretty obvious which one is which, sir.
Absolutely.
The trees that you took the photo of, that's facing the front of your home, that's the tree to the right-hand side, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The White
And
House?
this is a very, very old street view. Unfortunately, sometimes a little more updated, but this is a very old one, but it does show the rot on the limb even that far back, and it shows a heavy lean into the street, extremely heavy lean into the
Is that the house right on the bend,
No,
on the corner?
no, it is one up from Claghorn, not the corner house, but the next house, one that's under construction.
The one that's under construction?
Yes.
Okay.
You're good.
So I'm thinking the house after that,
Yeah.
going away from the beach. Okay.
My concern is that we're closing in on finalizing this project, and I'd like to get the sidewalk replaced, but I don't want to replace the sidewalk
Right.
until we have a
you said
decision
what's
on
going
the
to happen
tree.
with the tree. I understand that. Okay.
Because right now, it's,
Okay.
I mean, my original intention was all new curb, all new sidewalk, to have everything looking cleaned up, but the way those trees are growing,
Yeah.
I'd be silly spending any money with that, and I could damage the tree if I did try and replace the curb.
Okay.
You asked to replace the trees. Is there a type of tree that you were thinking?
Those are city trees.
I know.
I would be open to suggestions. I know that the city has a list of approved trees.
Yes. If we take that, now, not saying we're going to do it, if we take that one tree down, would you be willing to replace it
Absolutely.
in front with an
We have
approved-
already-
A tree of your choice, but within in the parameters of the city-approved trees.
Certainly.
All right. No Bradford pears and
Familiar with Bradford Pitt.
poison ivy trees or stuff, or bamboo.
In fact, we had to submit a landscape plan to HPC as part of this, so to add another tree is not a problem.
All right. Okay. All right.
So Jay, we're gonna table this till next month. We talk to George as the district commissioner here. We'll have the district commissioner here at the next meeting to
Yes,
comment on
hopefully.
this.
Okay. and go
Thank you.
from there. All right. We'll take care of it, one way or another.
So,
Which commissioner has to be here, we have to hear from him on that tree.
so I need to be here next month?
Yes, January.
Okay. And someone had suggested, I think it was you, Ms. Werner, that you wanted to picture the whole tree?
It would be nice to see the context, but I think, again, when we have the district commissioner here, he'll be able to describe to us probably in greater detail what it looks like.
If you can get a couple printouts, that way it's easier for us to pass.
Absolutely. The one that I didn't play for you is the video of the woodpecker up in the tree, and I know woodpeckers don't go into healthy trees, so. But I do have that as well. Okay, thank you.
Next month, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Bill, for coming in. Okay. Paul, did you want to have?
There is another gentleman here. Did you want to come up?
He's with the West Cape May Shade Tree Commission.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You want to make a statement, Wayne? This is Wayne Hoffman, is the chairman of the West Cape May Shade Tree Commission. He and I have been talking on and off for a couple of years now. We're finally to the point where I think we're going to hopefully adopt most of the everything that the West Cape May it's worked so hard on for so many years. And so we'll be pretty much in compliance as far as any contractors that come in shouldn't be surprised.
I think it's a great idea. I think the Point, Cape May, West Cape May, I think the ordinance should all be consistent because guys like Ron Manier
Right.
come to Cape May, and they do some work, and then they come to West Cape May, and they go, they're different rules. Just because there's a line on a map,
Right.
I think the rules should try to be consistent. Now, Ron and I think have a pretty good relationship, and I know we had one issue probably 3-4 years ago, and now every time I see his truck, Matt Notch's truck, Larrick's truck, I don't even stop. I know that these guys are going to comply.
Okay.
There are a couple other people that are, it's interesting.
Have you had, so you've had this new ordinance in effect for a year now, right?
It's actually, I think it's been a little over 2 years.
2 years, okay.
And I think I photocopied what was in the paper where tomorrow night, I believe they're going to come up with new ordinances to make some of the ordinances tougher.
Right.
Mainly for the contractors, not for the tree guys. The contractors are doing, I think, most of the,
And you've been in court once, right?
6 times.
3 times now.
6.
6?
Yep.
Really?
We've won every time.
Okay.
The law is very, very clear. One, if you don't fill out an application and you cut down a tree, you've just violated the law. So, also found out, a couple of new things. Landscapers, they are allowed to trim trees, but they are not allowed to elevate. In other words, they can't get up on a bucket or a ladder or anything. They may not also cut anything over 6
Talking
inches.
about city trees or private property?
All trees, all trees.
In the state of New Jersey.
Yep. We saw a landscaping crew up on a ladder cutting down a tree. So one, they're not allowed to cut down trees.
Right.
So there was one violation, and two, they up on a ladder, and that's a state law. You can't get up on a ladder, up on a step stool, and do any type of sawing or cutting or chainsawing. And they also are not allowed to,
On private property trees?
all trees,
Any-
any tree. Yep,
Okay.
and that's in the entire state of New Jersey. So, Nels Johnson?
But they have to get a permit to do that, right?
No,
No, not to trim.
they're not listed.
Nope,
Allow.
They're
not to trim.
allowed. They have to be a NJ, a licensed tree company.
I understand. Okay.
Correct. Again, they may trim, but there are certain limitations. Yeah, a couple of tree replacement in West Cape.
Interrupt you for just a
Sure.
second? You brought up something that piqued my
Yeah,
interest there.
certainly.
You mentioned trim. How does one define excessive trimming versus acceptable trimming?
Well, you should go to right at the corner, that 4-way stop sign now at Ray's Farm, and look what they did to the 3 trees on the side of the one house. They cut, the trees are now this high, and the branches, 7, 8 of them are that long. They cut out 8 feet at the top of them.
And we see that. And we
You-
see that
you can
more
no-
and more and more and more.
You can notify the tree experts.
That's polling.
They will send someone out there, and they will get cited. And I've been told if they get 3 citations, they lose their license.
So topping is not pruning.
Topping is bad form. That's
Right.
just
Topping.
bad form.
Right.
Certain exceptions. If the homeowner comes in and says, I want these things whacked and topped and whatever, well, matter of fact, we had one case on Emerald or something that you had done the work, and I went out there, whoa, well, I know the owner of the home, and I know what they wanted to have done, so that's,
There's also a hazard reduction,
yeah.
Okay.
which if, for instance, a branch is split, like he had questioned me about a year ago about a mulberry that we had reduced back real far. Well, out past where we reduced it at, the limbs had split. And they were actually healing, but they weakened
Sure.
the branch. There was a mulberry. So we cut it back below the splits, which is the only thing you could do to reduce the hazard.
Well, that's the case I was talking about, and it looked like it was topped. But that's where I think there has to be dialogue with
Yeah.
the Ron Meneers and the
Can I
Matt
get
Notch
some
of the world.
clarification, just for my own interest? So you said that you're going to toughen your ordinances to make it tougher mainly for contractors. Now, are you talking about contractors that are tree service contractors, or are you talking about contractors that are working,
Contractors.
that are doing home additions, home?
Second and Columbia, there's a place there that we told them, we went out there and did a survey and said there are 10 trees that have to be protected, and we told them what the protection should be. Well, they subcontracted out, and there was a home, a 1-story house on the property, and I guess it was 2 days later, after we'd had a discussion, I drove by and there's a I don't know what the name of the machine is, but it's a backhoe or whatever, the size of the house, in the middle of the house, knocking the house down.
Right.
Well, that machine had already gone over all the tree roots, and the tree roots are like, the fibrous stuff, that's almost like capillaries.
Within 3 to 5 inches of.
Yeah,
the top of the soil.
and we've had many instances where we've told the people, those trees are probably going to die in 3 to 5 years. And in 3 years, they start to die because compaction is a main killer. But the issue there is what we're.
Construction barrier would have saved those trees?
Absolutely. Yep, and we told them what it should be. Matter of fact, at that particular home, it's every 1 inch, it's 1 foot. The one tree was 10 inches wide, and it was 10 feet.
1 foot per inch in diameter.
Correct.
4.5 feet above the ground.
Correct. And we got to in right where the footer was going to be. So they put barricades on 3 sides, and over the footer, they put a foot of mulch, 10 feet by 10 feet. That you can drive over the mulch, that compacts the mulch, it doesn't compact the ground. So we'll absolutely, negotiate and make things, we want these guys to make money and build houses and,
I know we have some language in the proposed regulations the proposed ordinance we're going to be talking about today, that we do address.
The TPZ, but also some discretion to, yes.
But we've enhanced the construction barriers that are to be,
Yes.
that are to be utilized in Cape May.
correct.
We're doing a fence kind of configuration instead of the plywood.
Our wood, if they put, a number of the contractors have used the pallets, which I think it's a great idea. Just put them up there and it keeps them away, keeps
Some
everything away.
just use that black plastic that.
Well,
disappears in-
we said yes to 1 or 2 people, and in 2 weeks, it was ripped down and there was stuff piled up against the tree, et cetera.
We want to stay a little more uniform for a few reasons.
Yep.
Also, just for the acceptability of how it is viewed from the street.
Right.
So with just going with a basic post and rail, which is a very.
I think that's great.
It's a very clean look.
Also, the wind doesn't blow it.
And the windows, yeah, it's a very.
It's a classy
minimal window.
TPZ. That's Cape May.
I think that was your idea.
It is,
It
yeah,
was Brother Van Pelt's idea.
yeah.
We do have tree replacement. It's interesting, I guess it's arbitrary, or you're asking the individual if they would replace it with a tree. Our ordinance is mandatory. You cut down a tree, you have to replace it. And we can actually say 2 trees for 1 if they take down a really big tree. We have really kind of steered away from that, but it's like 1 for 1. And Mickey does an assessment of every single application that comes in for tree removal. In my opinion, particularly the woman that was speaking earlier, if you had a report from Mickey today, he says, yes, take the tree down, or no, recommend it remains up. She really doesn't, kind of have to go by what this guy's the expert. And Matt Notch is on our board, which is great. He's a wonderful asset. But Matt Notch is probably going to take that tree down. That's a conflict of interest. I don't care what she says, he says, they can't hear it. We have to hear somebody else, who's an expert. So,
I agree with that statement.
yeah,
Your,
absolutely.
Your application's a little bit different than ours. You have a kind of like a site map. It locates where the tree in question is.
Correct.
Something that I was looking for was maybe a location of all the trees. That way, if we were to go back and say, I think there's a tree there yesterday, we can always have that documentation. Do you save all your documents for every application?
Everyone. And matter of fact, about a year ago, I started receiving the plans. Zoning gets the plans, I got the plans. 401 Sunset, a set of plans and all that. There's a sycamore tree that's missing that's not on the plan. He wants to plant 8 crepe myrtle and privet hedge, and I don't know what else he wants. Nothing on our recommended list of trees.
Right.
And we say, absolutely, you may plant those, but you're taking 4 trees down. You have to replace them with, 4 trees from our list.
Approved trees.
Yeah, approved trees, correct.
On the property,
Correct.
on their property, if it's possible.
Yeah, Mechanic and Broadway, a woman had a massive sycamore tree that was up in the line. It was probably 75% dead, unfortunately, but she had that taken down, and a tree in the back. And during our discussions, it was decided that she'd owed us 2 large trees and 1 small or medium tree. Mickey and I went out there 2 days ago, and Leroy looked on the property because she wants to plant a sycamore there again. I go, oh, man, 20 years, it's going to be up in the wires again. So anyway, I had discussions with her, and we deemed it that that property could only hold 2 trees, one large one in the front and a small one in the back. But she owed us another one, so she now has the option to, actually doesn't have an option. She can either buy a tree and plant it somewhere else or write a check for $400 that goes into our tree bank, and then we buy a tree and plant it wherever, somewhere else on the borough.
That tree replacement, that's not in this ordinance that we have here, I don't think.
Wayne, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
After an application is approved and the deed is done, do you have somebody go out there to review the actions taken?
Correct. They have 1 year to replace the tree. In a letter that is written to them saying, yes, you may take the tree down, here's the size tree for replacement, here's our list, you have 1 year to replace it. About 2 months ago, we looked through all the ordinances and there wasn't an ordinance. So we've probably have had 70% compliant, the other 30% aren't going to plant trees. Well, that's on us. You know, anyway, in the new stuff that's going to the commissioner tomorrow night, that will now become part of the ordinance. They have 1 year. And if they don't plant it, then they go to court.
Let me ask you another question. Say if you had a housing application for a new building or renovation of a building, and it goes and it's approved by the HPC, it doesn't have to go through the zoning and planning. Where are your stop measures to make sure that the trees are involved in the HPC review process?
My wife's on HPC. She would probably be able to answer that better. But I get most of the anything that goes to the planning board. I get a copy of the plans, and we actually write a recommendation, and we'll say, hey, there's 6 trees on the property. Okay, these 3 looks like they should be protected. The other 3 are going to be in the middle. But we assess, you know, what the condition of the trees are. But if it goes to zoning,
See, our blind side's HPC and planning.
yeah,
That's where we get blindsided.
it was till about a year ago.
We get copies of all the applications that go in there.
Yeah, I now get the plans before, actually, I get them before zoning, before Norm even gets them. And we get to review them, and then matter of fact, our recommendations become part of the packet that goes to the planning board and goes to the owner of the property who's doing the changes. And the attorney always asks them, are you going to comply with the recommendations from Shade Tree?
Can I ask another question, Wayne?
Sure.
In a situation, and I brought this up to the counselor over there.
Yeah, we're still ticked off that he's over here.
Well, we're real lucky over here. We know that. In the rare instances where you have, and how it would apply in Cape May would be zoning. Again, we don't have HPC input. Where Shade Tree would make a recommendation to zoning, and zoning goes, well, we don't particularly think that recommendation's quite something we agree with. How is that in West Cape May, is that zoning's purview? Does that go to another level? How do you handle that?
Norm
Laughing, by the way, up here.
Norm and I have had issues, and I always go back to the ordinances. I says, this is what the law says. You can't be arbitrary. This is what it says. You know, you can't say yes to one person because you like them, no to another. We've now just started 2 weeks ago to cite the owner and the tree operator. If, for example, they took a tree down, okay, both of them are getting cited. Before, owners weren't getting cited. There was maybe a relationship, or Norm knows a lot of people, and he was uncomfortable citing it. Well, our attorney, Kyle, said, no, you can't. You got to cite them both. So now let them fight it out. But zoning and I'm actually a deputy zoning officer, so I go around and take pictures then and get them to Norm and say, you know, they put a porch up. Do they have a permit? So I've learned quite a bit there. And if anyone is looking for a job, our Stacy is leaving, and she was Norm's assistant, if you will, enforcement, and she's leaving on Friday. So they're going to try to pull me in there. And I said, oh, no, I'm too old for this. But Norm he has come around that, or as a matter of fact, he now asks me, what should we do, Wayne? What should we do? A a tree in the alleyway on, kind of right behind the Black Duck. It was about a 15-footer, but it rotted, and it came down and was leaning halfway into the alleyway. And I got a phone call. I looked at it. I said, this is an emergency. Somebody can clean it up and get rid of it. Who's the owner? Make sure they put in an application. A day later, I went there, and it's cut down. And I talked to the person, Larrick, who I thought was supposed to cut the tree down, and he had no idea. I said, well, could you talk to the owner of the building and find out who? And the owner said, I didn't know it was down. I said, oh, boy. So a neighbor or somebody cut it down, and the problem is they threw all the stuff in right next to the Black Duck in the borough right-of-way or the borough property. So now this owner, abutting trees are the responsibility of the owner in West Cape May. Street trees abutting are the responsibility of the homeowner. So he is getting a notice, and he had to clean it up, I think 24 hours to clean it up. So I don't know if that answers, but Norm and I are now on the same page, and he kind of like believes that we know what we're talking about when it comes to trees. And so the other stuff, signs and all that stuff, they ask me, I don't know, neon signs. Also, our community is very vigilant. I mean, I get 5 fine phone calls in a week. Wayne, they're trimming. What's the name on the truck? Meneer. He's fine. And I'm not saying it because he's here, because, I mean, he's fine. But there's some of them, I've never even heard of the Three Musketeers. Who are they? They're not licensed, haven't been licensed for 2 years, and they've done work 2 times, so anyway. What else? Arbitrary. And this is just a comment. When you said to the first individual, you're going to pay for the $60 and you're going to pay for the application, et cetera, I said, oh, you shouldn't be saying that, because there's another person going to come up and they're going to ask could you pay for that too? And why don't you waive the fee for everybody then that comes up here? So I just would be careful.
This is why it's important on your set of plans, when you go out, or for a go-see on a set of plans, it's going to go to the zoning board or the planning board. You're very specific in your comments on trees on the property. You got to say, you know, it would not be inappropriate to say approve with the following conditions: that the trees that be protected by a post and rail barrier, you know, and any trees that are going to list that trees that are going to be removed that are within the footprint of the house are 6 feet from the edge of the house, but the provision is that trees must be replaced, right?
Correct.
The ordinance.
One for one inside. If they replace them outside of 6 feet, it's then
Right.
2 for 1. One other comment too, on our zoning application, there's a 3-line paragraph about TPZ, and the contractor has to sign that.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So,
I like that.
yeah.
And so also on these things, when you give an approval for, when you go and see, you're talking to a guy for trees, indicate as clear as you can on your approval which trees are going to be removed. And we have that place between Lafayette Street and Washington Street, because these people are going to come back and ask for those trees along the road to be coming back.
I happened to pass that.
Nothing wrong with those trees.
I passed that property today to go
Yes.
look at another request that was only about a block away, and the one tree that was not approved for removal has been removed.
That's the one against the other property.
Yes. So it has been removed.
And it wasn't approved?
That one tree was not approved.
So we also have a formula in our ordinance that.
Does that now go to code enforcement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
As of now, we
go to
don't
code-
have a
go to
liaison,
enforce-
but,
go to enforcement, because
part of the
now we're
it's part
talking
of the
$27 an inch for removal. And if you go to court, it's going to be $100, probably $100 fine for violation of the ordinance that exists now, plus $33 court cost. So,
Jay, my question is, how do we enforce this? Because,
Pardon?
how do we enforce this? Because as of now, we don't have a liaison on code
Code
enforcement.
You can say that they tell code enforcement that tree was not approved to be taken down.
If you see any violation, you see someone touching a street tree, you see anything inappropriate, you call code enforcement.
Okay, but this is after the fact now. The
Call-
tree has already been removed,
You-
so how do
you-
we handle this?
You take, I know what we do, we take a picture of the stump, we get it off to Norm, Norm writes them a ticket, and now they're going,
Usually when I see
in a month they go to court.
I see something like that, like I did the other day, remember, I took a picture of the tree, I sent it to Jay, I said, this doesn't look like our work. And it was a stump on Missouri Avenue, and he basically said, nobody wants to touch that stump because it's electric underneath.
Yeah, that's on Missouri Avenue, about 1300 block.
Yeah,
Or
12.
1200 block.
I remember that.
And there's electric wires, area where there's no electric wires. They're all buried. And a lot of them are buried on the street. And
One is buried, I had it, I'm the one that took the tree down because of the storm.
fall over.
And we had it marked out for grinding. And that electric wire runs from one straight across underneath that stump.
Okay,
So
can
my
I
point-
can I
my
just
point
get back
is-
to my, yeah.
my
so-
point is
yeah,
that
how do I follow up?
He's got a
Who
wealth of
follows up?
information. Before I get crazy and call code enforcement, I called Jay.
Okay,
I do too.
And Jay gets right back to me. He said he knows exactly what I'm talking about and where I'm talking about.
so in this instance, where this tree has now been removed on private property but not approved,
Oh, on private property.
who do I go to?
Code enforcement.
Code
enforcement.
enforcement. 'Cause it's,
And just explain the situation to code enforcement?
yeah, because it is a violation of a code.
Okay. And this is not done through you, Shane, not through the liaison? This is
No,
done-
no, I'm a neutral guy in this
This will,
particular
this
case.
will be probably done, won't this be done upon the adoption
Code
of the-
enforcement
of
can
the
issue.
new ordinance?
Code enforcement can issue a summons.
Because this has been my problem all along, is that I've been trying to figure out how, we enforce these issues. I understand the ordinance that's in place and penalties that are in place, but how is it enforced?
Well, I think the only hard part of that question would be, how do we know how big the tree is?
Well, it was on their landscape plan, it shows, and it's
Council
also
now
notation of the
decided
diameters
that
of the
in
trees.
So if it was in the plans, the evidence is there, and Mr. Gillenschwartz, I think we should move on to having Mr. Gillenschwartz help answer some of these questions.
Well, I think.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much.
You guys ever want a cup of coffee or whatever? Seriously.
Before we
My brain,
get
it's
into this,
not a lot
Paul,
in it, but.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. We need to work on our application
Thanks,
process, and
Wayne.
you'd be a big part of
Paul.
that.
you know Ron Manier. Ron
How
is
you
our contracted tree removal and tree trimming guy in the city.
Yes.
Ron said that the tree in front of the library, the new library, the Franklin Street School,
Yes.
you had a problem, he couldn't get in there because of the wire fencing.
Just get a hold of me a couple days before you want to do it. I'll have the
What
contractor
is
move
it?
the fence.
It's far enough away from the building, it's up high enough. So what is it that you actually want to
Just to
do?
bring some shape back to the tree.
Okay. Got
Could we have our guests introduce themselves, since?
Sure, this Chris Gillenschwartz, city solicitor. Carrie Freed is my assistant. She's joining us today.
Paul Dietrich, city engineer.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
If I could, just a couple of the points that you hit with Mr. Hoffman, or who I worked with closely in West Cape May, and a lot of this stuff is the product of discussions I had with Wayne back in 2020, end of 2020, when they were
Rather than
redoing.
reinvent the wheel, we just took the wheel and dropped it in.
Yeah, just an old beat-up wheel and presenting it here. But the question of enforcement, I don't want anybody who's watching this meeting to get the wrong impression. Our ordinances are enforceable now. This is a cleanup measure, but we have a permitting process in place now that requires trees in the public right of way. Anybody like that gentleman that came here earlier, he wants to remove a tree in the right of way? Well, it's not our idea. It's the adjoining property owner's idea. They can make an application, pay the fee, get it reviewed, and see if it's something that the Shade Tree Commission would consider. Private property owners, if you want to remove a tree, you need to get a permit. It's not just take down, clear cut a lot in the city of Cape May. Just like West Cape May, we have a tree protection.
And the magic
framework.
number is 3 inches.
Right, so there's a definition in the code of what qualifies and what doesn't. So if anybody right now chops down a tree under the code, private property or public property, and there's no permit in the city of Cape May, saying that's, this person got permission from this board to do that. That's a potential violation of the code, and that's nothing this board has to worry about, but anybody, a member of this board, a member of the public, a neighbor, a police officer, a fireman, any person could see that, report it to code enforcement, and that could potentially become a summons to the municipal court where they have to deal with that. And there's a general penalty provision in the city's code, minimum fine, maximum fine, and that's regulated by statute. And then in the case of removal of trees, there's also this formula that is in the penalty provision that's based on the size, and it's, pi, and that's, I'm not.
All understood. My question to I didn't need too much clarification on all of that. It's just, where is my now path to follow through? I'm going to go directly to code enforcement?
It's a call to code enforcement.
I'll go directly to, okay. So
You-
that was
you
the
or-
point. That was the only thing I needed clarification on. I wasn't sure if I can do that or not. Okay, so I have the ability, I'm.
Yes.
I have
Every,
right to
every
follow.
resident.
Yes.
Every resident.
Every resident
Okay.
has that. Not just you as a shade tree.
Got it.
commissioner, Every resident.
That
has
was, that was my big question. That's what I.
And sorry for the
Okay.
speech, but if anybody's listening to this, I also don't want them to get the wrong impression of, we don't have anything that's enforceable right now. We do. We have
Right.
we have a code that we're trying to improve upon right
Yep.
now, which contains a lot of similar provisions. So if I can give the board just an outline of what I did in the meantime. I know Mr. Warner wasn't here, and we exchanged some comments, so I wanted to make sure his comments were looped in as well.
Thank you.
So first thing
Ryan?
is the last thing in here, really, which is the application procedure. There was a concern before about how we catching these things when they come in. In order to pull a building permit, there's an amendment here at the end that would require the applicant to state whether the application proposes the removal of any trees or not. And if they do, well, then you have to go to the Shade Tree Commission. And
That's
that,
on the building permit.
on the building permit. So that's in the building permit process. So what that captures is the people that are not necessarily going to zoning and planning. You get the people that are going just to HPC, or maybe there's no zoning issues, there's no HPC issues. It might be some place outside of HPC. They just need a building permit. So that captures all of those things. And it also actually captures in that net the zoning and planning people too, because ultimately they have to pull a building permit too. So you capture everybody in that net, required as a condition of the building permit.
That's well.
Yeah, and when we get a certificate or a notice of completeness by Craig Hurlis, who is the
Planning board and
engineer, I
zoning board
guess,
engineer.
for several of the boards, he'll have a whole list of things that have to be complied with. And a lot of them is list any tree or landscape plan, any tree that's there and is proposed to be retained or removed.
So, and on that kind of segues into the question that you had, Mr. Warner, about, to Mr. Hoffman, well, what happens over there with when those applications get funneled to the zoning and planning board? And I can't tell you what happens, but I can tell you what's in their code because I wrote it. And it's that the Shade Tree Commission, those referrals, Shade Tree Commission has the ability to grant or deny. And you can think of that similar to the way our HPC is. We have
I just saw it back.
we have a strong HPC versus a weak HPC where the recommendations are not binding, it's just recommendations. So in that instance over in West KMA, they have a strong Shade Tree Commission report to the planning or zoning board. And so the Shade Tree Commission has the ability to grant or deny. Now, the alternative to that, in this case, and that's what's in this proposed ordinance, is a strong Shade Tree Commission report to those boards. The alternative is the applications that go to either planning or zoning could be a recommendation, and the board may consider, considering that as part of the entire application. And they could still agree with the Shade Tree Commission's determination, but it leaves them, the alternative is it leaves them with the ability to basically override that as part of ruling on the entire application. So here's the thing I'll say about this. We're in this context, this ordinance is going to come out of this board as a recommendation to council. If that is to change in there, it is something that this board can make a recommendation on and how they want that framed. I think it's important to be clear on that either way. But whatever leaves this board, know that if that's going to change, it's something that would have to go to the planning board for master plan consistency review, and they may say, they may have a different view on it, and then ultimately it's up to council how they want to frame it. So I just want to leave that as a potential moving part. Those are the two ways that it could shake out. I think.
Well, how should we present this then to the city council?
It's really up to the board, I think, to have that discussion and how you want to view it. I think either way, the city is in a better position than before because we know where everybody stands. So, on the one hand, if it's a weak recommendation to those boards, you go in, you're able to review it each time, you send your report, and those boards can consider it when they weigh in on those applications, they make the final determination. On the other hand, you could say, we want to be the final say on the trees, and it doesn't really give the boards a lot of wiggle room to problem solve that in the context of an application. So either way, it's clear. It's just, I could see arguments for both ways, and you guys should be aware of that, knowing that that may change
Can I put you on
in
the
the final.
Go for it.
What do you think?
I prefer hate to say it,
I hate to say weak, but yeah.
that-
I don't like the word weak or strong, because it's like a recommendation or it's binding.
I hate to say it, but I like the fact that the zoning and planning board can't override our decision. But I would prefer us to be involved in that decision process, even if
And
it
there's some
meant,
middle ground in there.
even if there's if we were able to have, us having a review of the applications that's gonna be presented before, have the same packet that the planning board is gonna have, or have a representative of us go into the planning board and speak it on behalf of the commission, just as an advocate.
Know that even in those cases, even if it's a recommendation, like if the recommendation is there's two nice trees, two large substantial trees on that lot, and the recommendation is don't take them out, don't sacrifice the trees to do this pool or whatever application is, even if the board were to override that, they would still be bound by the replacement obligation.
They'd still be what?
They would still be bound by the replacement obligation. So know that even if it's a weak recommendation to those boards, you're going to end up with some new trees if ones are taken out. So that might be some consolation to this board to know that.
And to also add to our argument that we would prefer to have them replaced with this list.
Right.
Approved trees.
And I think you have to,
Even something more specific, even if we wanted to.
and I think the boards are most likely going to take your recommendations as long as it's still allowing the applicant to do what they're wanted to do. I mean, I think the times that they would not do it is, they wanted to put up a shed. The only place they can put the shed on the property is where a tree is, and you say, no, we have to save the tree. I think that's probably one of the times that the shade tree and the boards are going to be in conflict is when the applicant wants to do something and the tree is preventing that from happening. So I think that's the majority of the times where they may disagree. I think, but for all the other times, they're going to look towards your recommendation on trees. Just like when the fire chief makes a recommendation on fire safety facilities, they take the recommendation of that professional within the city that's making that recommendation.
And I like the conciliatory thing that has to be done if applicant disagrees with a shade tree decision. Then it comes to you as a city manager, and you have to hold a hearing then. I mean, the first application, if they disagree, is to come in here and complain, like Jackie Speck has done, and this other guy came in from Grant Street, or Congress Street. But then if that can't be resolved, then it goes to you, and then you require a full sit-down meeting and resolve it that way. I go along with that. I think that's a good way of doing it. Unless, of course, it's an absolute hazard to life and property. A tree is teetering on its side, on its
Well, then
base or something.
then we don't have,
That's
then
an
those
emergency
usually, you're
basis.
not having those
And
problems
that-
at that point.
Yeah, that anybody from your call to the public manager or public works call, and any one of the shade tree members say, yeah, that tree's a hazard, take it down immediately. And then put an application, I think it says, put an application in afterward.
Right.
To do that. And of course, there would be no, probably if the tree was damaged for one reason or another, whether it was a wind or accident or something like that, there would be no fees, no $75 application fee and no $75 approval fee then, if the tree is determined to be a hazardous tree. I think that's in there also.
Let me ask you a question. Say if the planning board were to approve the removal of trees, they still have to pay the $75 for removal fee, right? And do they have to pay for the application to remove those trees as part of that planning board, zoning board process? Because they are asking for these trees to be removed, after all. That could be our stopgap right there.
Yeah,
Force
that's.
an application.
That's not necessarily clear in here that they would have to pay those fees. And remember that they're going to be paying, an application and escrow fee for that type of review. It's something that can be, if they're making an application directly to this board, the answer is obviously yes. But if it's by way of a referral from a zoning board or planning board, it's not clear to me that, I don't know what the current practice is right now, but we can certainly clarify this in here.
Does anybody knows what we're talking about, right?
We're going to be looking, I've been talking to our board administrators, and we're going to be looking at some of our, the HPC, planning board, zoning board application fees, and just, we can look at that, maybe we can incorporate, just so that part of that review process, just like it's, site plan and you need a variance and this and that, we can maybe include that part of the board application process fee,
'Cause
incorporate that.
After all, we're here to discourage the removal of trees. I mean, you're gonna have to pay more money if that's what you want to do. I mean, that's my opinion as a liaison. I don't know how anybody else.
Yeah.
Well, there's still administrative expenses for this board to get a referral, so it makes sense that you would pay the fee.
We can look at that.
Yeah.
When we do those fees.
And those application fees to the zoning and planning board don't necessarily cover what this board has to do and administrative expenses and like.
Citywide expenses.
Right.
Can I ask a question regarding our changes? So if all accepted and approved by council, is this going to force the hand of any of the other boards to have to do amendments to their ordinances?
No, this would, what it would probably result in is some updates to some of our forms, like the construction and zoning permit, because this would be made a indication of whether you're going to remove trees at the construction permit phase, the built pool permit. That should really show up on every form, I think. I'll leave that to the staff, but it would provide backbone in the code for that to show up on a form.
So somewhat related, brought up before, was, so in West Cape May, as of now, they have some documentation, a form that needs to be signed by the contractor regarding the TPZ. So we don't have that wording in here, but is that even needed in the amendment, or is that just something that can be an additional form that goes out through the application fee for the building permit?
We could, this would provide for the establishment of a TPC in the city. So that is another thing that could be added to. We have recently, I think a few months ago, council approved a FYI person pulling construction permit list of laws in the city of Cape May. And I could envision that showing up as another thing that gets produced in the pulling the permit phase.
Okay.
And everybody's presumed to be on notice of these things anyway, once they're adopted, but, an FYI and a piece of paper that's available with all the other forms they're picking up, I think is helpful as a reminder of.
This list that you referred to, the contractor during the process of getting his building permit, does he sign off to say he acknowledges that he received this information?
I believe there's an acknowledgement at the end of that,
There is.
that when they're pulling a permit, they've acknowledged that these are the things to be on the lookout. Things like dumpsters,
Okay.
timing of construction, and by the way, if you're going to be, doing site clearing or anything like that, there needs to be a TPZ around. I mean, putting all that, including that is another construction, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Right.
And that, once it's in the code, that's something that can be done administratively.
And to my understanding, all subcontractors still fall under the general contractor. So whether or not a subcontractor to a general contractor tries to say, well, I wasn't aware of that, that would not matter because it still goes back to the
Yeah,
general contractor.
I wasn't aware of the city code in the town that I pulled a permit, or I got hired to do work, is not a defense in court. It's really up to them to be aware of that stuff. And,
Okay.
but good practice is to say, oh, by the way, you know, you're pulling a permit today, here's this form, a bunch of helpful information of FYI, you ought to know sections of the code.
Sure.
So where do we go from here? We have to take a vote to ask you to present this to city council, or ask Shane to present this to city council?
Yeah, so the only, and let me know if there's any other questions on that as well, like the specific provisions, but what I got out of this discussion today is, it sounds like there's maybe a consensus of this board that viewing the referrals to from the zoning and planning board, the Shade Tree Commission would be amenable to that being more of a recommendation and not a approved or denied, knowing that that's going to be considered by the board as part of the review process with the board engineer, and leaving that determination up to the boards themselves. And knowing that there's a replacement obligation. Too.
It's as a recommendation to the board.
Okay, so, and making that clear, I would revise this just to reflect that understanding. But
Advise what?
I would revise this just to make that clear, what we talked about today.
Okay.
But other than that, if this board's okay with it, you could take.
Are we in agreement?
With that addition.
So we can vote on the way it stands now?
Yeah, with
With the.
incorporating that amendment, I'll do that after the table.
Okay.
And then I can present that to council.
Somebody make a motion, second?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the
Ordinance.
the ordinances. that-
As presented?
As presented by Councilor Gillen Swartz, and we, with the addition of the amendment
Second.
for the HPC and zoning.
Okay, you already have a second vote?
Barbara.
Barbara seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
So-
you very much for your time.
I was just
We
gonna
really
say-
appreciate
Yeah,
it, and all
that's-
your hard work.
All the back and forth and stuff the past couple of months. I really appreciate your time on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I
Jay, I
appreciate,
think-
Shane, I
You did a good
appreciate your
job.
time and effort on doing this. Really appreciate it.
Well, I just think,
Shane has a comment.
I think this is a good starting point. We could always add to this. And, you know, just be prepared that some council members may have additions to this. And finally, I think that we should start focusing on the application process. And I think what your addition is going to do is going to dovetail into that, making sure that we have all those things in line to make sure that we're not forgotten in the application process for the other boards and commissions.
And let me know when this is going to go before city council, so I can be there, we can be there to answer any questions that city council may have.
I hate to one more thing this, but just in looking at West Cape May's code before I got here again, and I saw Wayne was here, one thing that is in there and is pretty regularly used by them is they have a tree specialist report generated for the board on every application. It's built, I think, built into the fee. And one of the things that I think that helps them over there is the board has a report that it can rely on in support of its decision-making, and that's done by somebody with the qualifications. And it really puts the onus on the applicant to come in with their own report that indicates that removal is really warranted. So it just helps with the board's record, and it is something that's built into their application process. It's something that, you know, I think is a.
How do we adopt that?
Well, Mickey Riggins doesn't charge an arm and a leg, but it's at least an arm, so it's expensive to bring in a certified person for any one of these applications. We're going to wind up doing it, paying for it for Mrs. Speck here for Maryland Avenue.
And what I'm going to say is, for an appeal, we're going to need that, you know what I mean? That's one of the things I'm going to be looking at, you know, because otherwise we're going to use some of my view of the tree, and I don't want me to be always be the arbiter. I think having a specialist that's trained in it, you know, make that,
I think we'd like.
give them their expertise, and I think that's
Yes, I mean, it
valuable
was
to have.
put back at us that we are not tree experts. And, you know, with all right, we're not tree experts. We're here volunteering for the city, trying to save trees and doing the best we can for our environment. But there is
Yeah, we-
truth to that statement. So therefore, if we could have an expert opinion, of course, that takes a lot of burden off of us. Right.
And one of the things, the ways that that can be handled is it could be an annual sort of assignment to a qualified person to be in the dugout for the Shade Tree Commission. And as long as that's budgeted for, you know, it's something that you may use every time, you may use on more substantial applications when a significant tree is involved, but having that in your packets when a difficult application is before you, I think is just going to allow you to lean into your decision-making a little bit more and, you know, confront that, well, what gives
So
you-
going back to the question, so what's the first step for us to adopt this? What needs to take place?
Well, I think what I would suggest is that can be incorporated by establishing a tree care specialist that is in the dugout for, so to speak, for the Shade Tree Commission. I can add a section to that, and I can also add that, you know, just like West Cape May's ordinance, that a report will be generated by that individual either every case or on an as-needed basis as requested by the board. Maybe it's probably more appropriate for this board.
But this would also be a budgetary issue, right?
That's-
now,
so
Well,
then
but I think that's what Chris was saying. We would make that part of the application fee.
Yeah.
okay.
So that, you know, if that's needed, you know, kind of like the lady that was in here earlier, she's coming here, I don't agree with your denial, so instead of her coming up to the city manager's office to start that process, let's go get the professionals' expertise, and then, you know,
Then we'll have our hearing.
then you have then we don't need a hearing, then we can, then the professional can come back to you folks, you can look at it, and then, you know, if you feel that you're going to override the professional's judgment, then you got to have a meeting with the city manager, and then we'll have that discussion.
But mindful of what the budget impact might be, I
Yeah,
don't think this
but if
is,
this is an application,
it's a selective approach.
Paul, it's like the situation on Franklin Street.
I
That
understand.
one tree closest to Columbia Avenue.
Well-
You said, well, I said they probably could muddle around on the root system of that tree. It's a leaner into
see-
the street. You can muddle around the root system, but if they take too much of that root system off, it's going to destabilize that tree, and it's going to fall into the street.
Well,
I said, probably you can get by doing it. You said, get a shade tree, get a certified arborist, you're going to sign off on it. There is no certified arborist, they're going to sign off on something like that. I mean, just not going to happen.
well, and that's where you got to, you know, and that's where for like major construction projects that the city's going to be doing, we're going to be bringing that, you know, we're going to be proactive and have that expert make that analysis on construction projects, whether it's Lafayette Street Park, you know, we're back in
And this falls
Kiwanis.
more under your title and what you do.
Yes, and
Yeah.
then
Well,
let's get,
that's
that's,
edible.
you know, I don't want to make it, hey, that I'm trying to use my expertise. Let's bring an arborist expertise in here,
Right.
and let's, you know, do what
But
we
you have
need
to
to
be
do.
more concerned with public safety, you have to be, there's a lot of concerns that you have to take into
Yes.
account that we may not, so.
But-
I don't know if
and
we
it-
mentioned before, Mr. Dietrich is our engineer, but
Yes.
he will be our city manager January
And-
1st.
And just to follow up on that, about 3 months ago, I think I was at the Taxpayers Association, I think that's where I was at, and they said, what do you think the 5 top things that are going on, you know, problems or not issues with the city? And I didn't have a real good answer for them. I said, I just got here. Well, now that I'm going to be the incoming city manager, I better come up with those. And to be honest, as I was sitting there really contemplating that, our city trees, I think, are in one of our top 5 major issues that we need to deal with. And I think that, and this is something that I've briefly talked to Jay. I didn't get a chance to talk to Shane too much, but I will be coming back in the early part of next year because I think we need to be more proactive on really looking at our true inventory of street trees and coming up with a plan to make sure that those are maintained, because our street trees are aging. And that makes them very vulnerable to disease, accidents, weather, and all these other things. And I think we need to be more proactive, or we need to become proactive. I don't want to say more proactive, but I think we need to be proactive in saving this vital resource that the community has, so that 20 years from now, we have a vital, healthy tree community within Cape May. But I think we need to start it, and it's like the trees that we have here didn't just pop up one day and get to be where they're at. It was a long process of planting trees and letting them mature and get to where they're at. But that needs to be a continuous process that we need to move on, and that is, just as a forewarning, I'm going to be coming back to you and trying to talk with you on developing a plan so that we can have a vital, healthy
Summer
tree
gets
community.
Discussed at future meetings.
Yes.
Size of the tree, the location.
I'm just,
I do have a somewhat.
I'm just kind of,
I have a somewhat related question to that, and I was actually going to try to bring that up today, and I think this would be best addressed to you. So requests come in sometimes for trimming of street trees, and one of the reasons comes up quite often that the street sweeper cannot pass underneath the limbs. I've seen it myself. I've seen when the operator has to move out of the way of the tree. Would it make sense, and can it be done practically, for the operator, as he's passing this tree, to make note of where the tree is, have somebody from Public Works come out, know the clearance of what he needs for that machine, and remove the limbs that would need to be removed so he can safely pass underneath the tree? Is that possible that we can move into that?
We have a liaison.
it's not just the street sweeper. You've got
Vans,
the trash trucks,
Absolutely.
all the, fire trucks.
Right.
UPS,
But now
and
we'd be
delivery
talking
trucks.
about, somebody who's actually on the payroll of the city.
Right, yes.
Determining that he cannot pass underneath this limb.
I've always
Turn
found
to
it that,
Public
that
Works
that street
and-
sweep, he's going up and down every street, and he can always take that moment to stop his vehicle safely, jot a number down and say, hey.
Would that recommendation now come from you to Public Works, or how would that, how can we move?
I can pass that message along.
Do you
for
like the
sure.
recommendation?
Well, I think that's what should be done.
Okay, well.
I don't even need that recommendation.
That's being done, so.
I'll make sure that we
Yeah.
can, I'll have a discussion, and that'll be part of the
Shane,
process.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Council? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion. That's it?
That's it, and I'll leave it to Councilman Meyer, and I can discuss when you'd like to present that to all of council.
Cool.
Whenever.
Just, I guess, email it to me, and then we'll discuss it, and then once we like it, we'll have Nancy send it to everybody,
Great.
and we'll present it. And hopefully, the members, whoever wants to come out and support this to the council, if you feel like you want to do that, we can do that too.
Probably just where we are in the year, I probably think it's realistic to think early 2024 for introduction on something like that.
And you don't necessarily have to be there for the introduction. It's usually the public hearing is it's usually the second meeting, though I'm sure council on an introduction would allow some shade tree members to speak on the
So when will
introduction.
this be introduced?
Well, we
February,
can't, we don't introduce a new ordinance at the end of the year, so it'll probably the second meeting in January.
Second meeting in January, okay.
Just
So by March, it'll be official law.
Pardon?
By March, it'll be official law.
Right.
Yes.
as long as there's no hang-ups.
Approved, and because X number of days after it's approved. How many?
There's an introduction, publication, and then a public hearing. So there'll be at least 2 council meetings.
Okay.
And the way that this is framed, with reviewing and recommending removal or not to the Planning and Zoning Board, this is something we wouldn't want to send for master plan consistency review to the Planning Board. So there's going to be basically at least 3 meetings to review this, one at the planning board and 2 council meetings.
Should we show up at the planning board and zoning board meetings?
You'll definitely have the opportunity to, and I can keep Nancy and the Shade Tree
Yes,
Commission.
I'll do it. Maybe you will want to come, maybe
Yeah.
one other member come. We can't do any more than 2 members. Otherwise, we have to any more than 3 members, otherwise we'd have to sunshine it. So-
Am I allowed to speak if there's going to be 3 council members there?
Yeah, if you want to speak on that matter, it's not for purposes of acting, you're not acting that night, so, yeah, I think if you have some public comments you'd like to speak, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm only here short-term. I would just like to say one thing before you bring the meeting to an end. But I would like to say thank you to Nancy. I think she did a fantastic job for the short period of time I was here, and I'm sure I can speak for all to say thank you, Nancy.
Yes.
And you're going to be missed, I think, so.
Long time in coming. Long time in coming. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Barbara, second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you
Aye.
very much. Thank you. Nancy?
Thank you, Nancy.
Oops, turn off your mic.
Oh, that's an old one. I remember seeing that. That goes back. Yeah, yeah.